In the quaint village of Pine Grove, a woman's life changes forever when she discovers a lost child in the woods. Lorena has spent years running from connection, but when she meets little Lucas and his widowed father Miguel, she's drawn into a world of love, healing, and new beginnings. Before we begin this story, comment below where you're watching from. Tentar novamente ou Claude pode cometer erros. Confira sempre as respostas. The morning sun peeked through the thin curtains of Lorena's modest rented room. At 26, she was starting over again, something she had grown accustomed to after years of temporary jobs and constant movement. Her small suitcase sat in the corner, not fully unpacked even after a week in the village. Old habits die hard, and Lorena had learned long ago not to get too comfortable anywhere. As she brushed her dark hair in front of a small mirror, her eyes caught the only framed photograph she owned, herself and her older sister Eleanor, smiling. On a beach somewhere. Elena's arm was wrapped protectively around a teenage Lorena. That was before the cancer took Elena away, leaving Lorena truly alone in the world. Another day, she whispered to herself. Just get through another day. The village of Pine Grove wasn't much, a main street with a handful of stores, a diner, and surrounded by farms and woodland. But it was quiet, and quiet was what Lorena needed after the chaos of city life. The job at Miller's General Store wasn't glamorous, but Mrs. Miller was kind and the work was simple, stocking shelves, working the register, and helping customers find what they needed. "Good morning, Lorena," called Mrs. Miller as Lorena walked through the door. The older woman was arranging fresh fruits at the front of the store. "Sleep well? You still getting used to all the country quiet?" Lorena smiled. "It's actually nice. No sirens, no neighbors fighting at 2 a.m. "Well, we do have roosters," Mrs. Miller chuckled. "They don't care what time your shift ended." The morning passed quickly. Lorena learned the names of a few more regular customers and memorized where the canned vegetables belonged versus the canned fruits. Around noon, when the store was empty, Mrs. Miller brought her a cup of coffee. "You know," the older woman said, leaning against the counter, "you're doing real good work here. But you don't say much about yourself." Lorena shrugged. "Not much to tell. Everyone's got a story, honey, but I won't pry. Just know that folks around here look out for each other. You're not alone anymore." The words hit Lorena harder than she'd expected. Not alone. She'd been alone since Elena died 5 years ago. She took a sip of coffee to hide the sudden emotion in her eyes. "Thanks," she managed. "I appreciate that." When her shift ended at 4, Lorena did what she'd been doing every day since arriving in Pine Grove. She changed into comfortable shoes, packed a small bag with water and a sandwich, and headed for the trails that wound through the woods at the edge of town. There was something healing about walking alone among the trees, listening to birds and the rustle of leaves. For an hour or two, she could forget the hollow space inside her chest. Today she took a new path, one that seemed to lead toward the mountains in the distance. The late afternoon sun filtered through the canopy of leaves, creating dappled patterns on the forest floor. Lorena breathed deeply, letting the scent of pine fill her lungs, and then she heard it. A small, frightened sob coming from somewhere off the trail. Lorena stopped, listening intently. There it was again, definitely crying. A child. She stepped carefully off the path, moving toward the sound. "Hello?" she called gently. "Is someone there?" The crying paused briefly, then started again, more desperate now. Lorena pushed through some bushes and found herself in a small clearing. There, sitting on a fallen log with dirty tear streaks down his face and a badly scraped knee, was a little boy. He couldn't be more than 4 or 5 years old. "Oh my goodness," Lorena said, approaching slowly. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, his lower lip trembling. He had dark, curly hair and wide brown eyes rimmed with tears. "I'm lost," he whispered, "and I hurt my knee, and I want my daddy." Lorena knelt down in front of him, careful not to move too quickly. "It's okay, I'm going to help you. My name is Lorena. What's yours?" "Lucas," the boy sniffled. "Lucas Ramirez." "Nice to meet you, Lucas. That looks like a bad scrape. Does it hurt a lot?" Lucas nodded, fresh tears welling up. "I have some water. Let's clean it up a bit." Lorena took a bottle from her bag and gently dampened her handkerchief. This might sting a little, but we need to get the dirt out. As she carefully cleaned his knee, she kept talking in a soft, calm voice. How did you get all the way out here by yourself? I was playing hide and seek with Rosa, but she didn't find me. So I went looking for her, but then I couldn't find the house anymore. His lower lip trembled again. And then I fell. Who's Rosa? Lorena asked, dabbing carefully at the scrape. She helps take care of me. She cooks and cleans for us, but she's old, Lucas explained with the blunt honesty of a child. I see. And where do you live? Cedar High Farm, he said proudly. My daddy owns it. It's the biggest farm around. Lorena had heard of Cedar High. It was indeed one of the largest properties in the area, though she hadn't met its owner yet. Well, Lucas, I think we should get you home. Your daddy must be very worried. She finished cleaning his knee and smiled at him. Think you can walk? Lucas tried to stand but winced. It hurts. Tell you what, Lorena said, turning and crouching in front of him. Climb on my back, I'll carry you. Lucas hesitated for a moment, then climbed onto her back, his small arms wrapping around her neck. Hold on tight, she said, standing up. And maybe you can help me find the way to your farm. That way, Lucas pointed, past the big oak tree with the swing. As they made their way through the woods, Lucas gradually stopped crying. Lorena talked to him about the birds and squirrels they saw, and soon he was giggling when she pretended to lose her balance. You're funny, he said. And nice. You're pretty brave, Lorena responded. Some kids would still be crying. My daddy says big boys don't cry too much. Well, Lorena said carefully, I think everyone cries sometimes, even big boys and grown-ups. It's okay. They reached the edge of the forest, and Lorena could see farm buildings in the distance across an open field. That's home, Lucas exclaimed. I see Daddy. In the distance, a man was moving rapidly across the field, accompanied by two other men. Even from this distance, Lorena could tell he was searching frantically. Let's go meet him, she said, starting. Cross the field. But Lucas was getting heavy, so she set him down. Can you walk a little now? Lucas nodded and took her hand. They walked together toward the searching men. Daddy! Lucas suddenly shouted, waving his free arm. The man in front stopped dead in his tracks, then started running toward them. Lucas! As he got closer, Lorena could see him clearly, tall with the same dark curly hair as his son, but shorter. His face was tanned from working outdoors, and right now it was a mixture of panic and relief. He reached them and dropped to his knees, pulling Lucas into a tight embrace. Where were you? I've been looking everywhere. The whole farm is searching for you. His voice was thick with emotion. I got lost, Daddy, but the nice lady found me. She fixed my knee, too. The man looked up at Lorena for the first time, and their eyes met. His were deep brown, just like his son's, but with a sadness that the child's didn't have. Thank you, he said, his voice breaking slightly. We've been searching for almost 2 hours. He was pretty far into the woods, Lorena explained. I found him while I was hiking. The man stood up, lifting Lucas into his arms. I'm Miguel Ramirez. This is my son, Lucas. Lorena Santos. I just moved to town last week. She carried me. Daddy, Lucas said. And she gave me water and cleaned my knee. Look, he pointed to his scrape proudly. Miguel looked at his son's knee, then back at Lorena. His relief was giving way to something else, gratitude, but also something deeper that Lorena couldn't quite name. You saved my son, he said quietly. Then, with his voice catching slightly, he added, and you won my world. The intensity in his eyes made Lorena take a small step back. I just did what anyone would do, she said, suddenly feeling self-conscious. Daddy, can Lorena come see the horses? Lucas asked, seemingly oblivious to the charged moment between the adults. Miguel seemed to gather himself. Of course. Miss Santos, would you like to come back to the house? We can offer you something to eat, a proper thank you. Oh, that's not necessary, Lorena said quickly. I should be getting back to town before it gets dark. Please? Lucas asked, his eyes wide and pleading. You can meet my dog, Bruno. Lorena looked at the little boy's hopeful face and felt something shift inside her. When was the last time anyone had really wanted her company? Well, maybe just for a little while, she conceded. They walked back, across the field together. Lucas chattering about his dog and his toy tractors from his father's arms. The two other men, farm workers who had been helping with the search, headed off to tell everyone that Lucas had been found. As they approached the farmhouse, a beautiful two-story country home with a wide porch, an older woman came rushing. "Out, Dios mío, Lucas!" she cried, hurrying down the steps. "Where have you been, Niño Travieso?" "I got lost, Rosa," Lucas said, "but Lorena found me." Rosa, who Lorena now realized must be the housekeeper Lucas had mentioned, crossed herself, and then took Lucas from Miguel's arms, checking him over from head to toe. "You scared us half to death," she scolded gently, then looked at Lorena. Thank you for bringing him home." "Rosa, can you take Lucas inside and clean him up?" Miguel asked, "and maybe get him something to eat?" Of course. Rosa nodded, carrying Lucas toward the house. The boy waved over her shoulder. "Bye, Lorena, come see me again." And then it was just Miguel and Lorena standing in the yard as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Please," Miguel said, gesturing toward the porch, "just stay for a cup of coffee?" Lorena hesitated. This man was a stranger, and getting involved with people, even just for coffee, meant creating connections. Connections that could be broken, like all the others in her life. But there was something about the way he looked at her. Not just gratitude, but a recognition of some kind. As if he somehow understood the weight she carried. "Okay," she agreed, "just one cup." They sat on the porch and Rosa brought them coffee and some freshly baked cookies. As the darkness settled around them, Miguel told Lorena about the farm, about how his family had owned it for generations. He spoke of the crops they grew, the horses they raised. "And Lucas?" Lorena asked carefully. "He mentioned it's just the two of you and Rosa." A shadow crossed Miguel's face. "His mother, Isabel, died 2 years ago. Car accident." He stared out at the darkening fields. "Since then, it's just been us." "I'm sorry," Lorena said softly. "I understand loss." Miguel turned to look at her, really look at her. "Yes," he said quietly. "I can see that you do." As she stood to leave, Miguel insisted on driving her back to town. "These roads are dark at night," he said. "And after what you did for Lucas, it's the least I can do." The ride was mostly silent, but not uncomfortable. As they pulled up in front of her small apartment above the bookstore in town, Miguel turned to her. "Lucas has his checkup at the doctor's. Tomorrow. We always stop for ice cream afterward, it's our tradition." He paused. "It would mean a lot to him if you joined us. Around noon at Daisy's Diner?" Lorena knew she should say no. Getting involved with this family, this man with the sad eyes and his bright-eyed little boy, was dangerous. She'd learned the hard way that caring about people meant eventually losing them. But the memory of Lucas's smile and the way he'd held her hand as they walked across the field tugged at something she thought had died inside her long ago. "Okay," she heard herself say. "I'll be there." As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Lorena wondered what she was doing. Pine Grove was supposed to be just another temporary stop, another place to pass through, not somewhere to form attachments. Yet as she got ready for bed that night, she found herself looking forward to tomorrow for the first time in years. And in a farmhouse a few miles away, Miguel Ramirez sat on the edge of his sleeping son's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, thinking about the quiet woman with gentle hands who had brought his world home to him. Lorena woke up earlier than usual the next morning. She stood in front of her small closet, something she hadn't done in years. Usually she just grabbed whatever was clean and comfortable. But today, she found herself trying on 3 different tops before settling on a simple blue blouse that Elena had once said brought out her eyes. "This is silly," she muttered to herself. "It's just ice cream with a little boy." And his father, the voice in her head added, the handsome widower with the sad eyes who had looked at her as if she'd performed a miracle by bringing his son home safely. At the general store, Mrs. Miller noticed the change immediately. "Well, don't you look nice today?" she said, smiling. "Any special reason?" Lorena busied herself arranging a display of canned peaches. "Not really. Just felt like making an effort." Mrs. Miller said, clearly not believing her. "I heard you found the Ramirez boy yesterday. That must have been quite the adventure." Lorena looked up, surprised. News travels fast around here. Small town, honey. By now everyone knows how you heroically rescued little Lucas from the deep, dark forest, Mrs. Miller winked, and that Miguel Ramirez himself drove you home. Lorena felt her cheeks warm. It wasn't like that. I just happened to be hiking and found him. Anyone would have done the same. Maybe. But it was you who did it. And Miguel Ramirez hasn't given anyone a second glance since Isabel died. We're just having ice cream, Lorena said, then immediately regretted it. Mrs. Miller's eyes lit up. Oh, well, isn't that nice? Daisy's Diner makes the best sundaes in the county. The morning dragged on, each minute feeling like an hour. When noon finally approached, Mrs. Miller shooed her out the door. Go on, she said. I can handle things here. Don't keep them waiting. Daisy's Diner sat in the middle of Main Street, its red and chrome exterior a throwback to the 1950s. As Lorena approached, she saw Miguel's truck parked out front. Her heart did a little jump that both thrilled and frightened her. Inside, the diner was busy with the lunch crowd. Lorena spotted them immediately, Lucas sitting in a booth by the window, Miguel across from him. The boy was coloring on a paper. Placemat? His tongue sticking out in concentration. Lucas looked up and his face broke into a huge smile. Lorena, he called out, waving frantically. We're over here. Several heads turned to look at her, and Lorena felt self-conscious as she made her way to their table. Miguel stood as she approached, that old-fashioned courtesy that seemed so natural to him. You came, he said simply, but the smile that accompanied the words transformed his face, erasing some of the sadness she'd noticed yesterday. I promised. I would, Lorena replied, sliding into the booth next to Lucas, who immediately showed her his drawing. Look, it's you finding me in the forest. The crayon picture showed a stick figure with long black hair holding hands with a smaller stick figure, next to what appeared to be green blobs meant to be trees. That's beautiful, Lucas, she said, genuinely touched. Is that for me? He nodded, proudly. You can put it on your fridge. I'd love that, thank you. A waitress approached, her name tag reading Daisy, apparently the owner herself. Well, hello there, she said warmly. You must be the forest angel everyone's talking about. Lorena felt her face heat up again. I'm just Lorena. She saved me, Lucas declared importantly, when I was lost. So I heard, Daisy smiled. The usual for you boys? And what can I get for you, honey? What do you recommend? Lorena asked. She should have what I'm having, Daddy, Lucas said decisively. The super deluxe sundae with extra cherries. Miguel laughed, a rich sound that Lorena immediately wanted to hear again. That's a lot of ice cream, buddy. Maybe Lorena would like something smaller? Actually, the super deluxe sounds perfect, Lorena said, surprising herself. When was the last time she'd indulged in something as simple as a giant ice cream sundae? Lucas beamed at her. See, Daddy? Lorena knows what's good. When their ice cream arrived, enormous creations with multiple scoops, whipped cream, hot fudge, and indeed extra cherries, Lucas dove in immediately. Lorena took a bite and closed her eyes in appreciation. Good, right? Miguel asked, watching her with a small smile. Delicious, she agreed. Worth every calorie. They talked easily as they ate, Miguel asking about her job at the store, Lorena inquiring about the farm. Lucas chimed in frequently, his face increasingly covered in chocolate. Sauce, and how did Lucas's checkup go? Lorena asked. Perfect health, Miguel said proudly. Though the doctor did say he needs to eat more vegetables. Lucas made a face. Vegetables are yucky. All of them? Lorena asked. Lucas nodded solemnly. Every single one. Even carrots with honey or sweet potato fries. Lucas looked intrigued. I never had those. Maybe we'll have to try them sometime, Miguel said, then glanced at Lorena. Do you cook? A little, she admitted. My sister taught me some recipes. Your sister? Lucas asked. Does she live here too? A familiar pang shot through Lorena's heart. No, she died a few years ago. Like my mommy? Lucas asked quietly. Miguel started to intervene, but Lorena nodded. Yes, like your mommy, she got very sick. Lucas considered this seriously, then reached out and patted Lorena's hand with his sticky fingers. That's sad. Do you miss her a lot? Every day, Lorena said honestly. I miss my mommy too, Lucas confided, but Daddy says she's in heaven watching over me. I'm sure she is, Lorena said, throat tight. She glanced up to find Miguel watching them, his eyes reflecting a shared understanding of grief. The moment was broken when Lucas announced he needed to use the bathroom. I'll take him, Miguel said, sliding out of the booth. Be right back. As they walked away, Daisy appeared with a coffee pot. Refill? Please, Lorena said, grateful for the distraction. Daisy filled her cup, then hesitated. You know, I've known Miguel since we were kids. We went to school together. Lorena waited, sensing there was more coming. When Isabel died, something in him died too. He's been going through the motions for Lucas's sake, but the light was gone. Daisy glanced toward the restrooms. Today's the first time I've seen him actually smile, really smile, with his eyes, you know. Lorena didn't know what to say to that. I'm just saying whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That boy needs his father back, not just the shell. Before Lorena could respond, Miguel and Lucas returned. Lucas's face was now clean, his hair slightly damp at the front where Miguel had obviously helped him wash up. Daddy says we can show you the farm, Lucas announced as they sat back down. The horses and the chickens and everything. Can you come, please? Lorena hesitated, looking at Miguel. I wouldn't want to impose. It's not an imposition, he said. Lucas has been talking about you all morning, and I'd like to show you Cedar High properly in daylight this time. There were a dozen reasons to say no. She had laundry to do. She should look for a second job to build up her savings. She barely knew these people, but Lucas was looking at her with those big, hopeful eyes, and Miguel's gaze held something that made her pulse quicken slightly. Okay, she agreed. I'd like that. The drive to Cedar High Farm was filled with Lucas's excited chatter from the back seat of Miguel's truck. He pointed out landmarks along the way, the pond where they sometimes fished, the neighbor's farm where his friend Billy lived, the big red barn that belonged to someone named Old Mr. Johnson. When they pulled up to the farmhouse, Lorena could appreciate it properly in the daylight. It was beautiful, a large white country house with green shutters, a wraparound porch dotted with rocking chairs, and flower beds bursting with color. Rosa loves gardening, Miguel explained, noticing her admiration of the flowers. She says, it reminds her of home. Where is home for her? Mexico. She came to work for my parents when I was a teenager. She's like family now. As they got out of the truck, a large golden retriever came bounding around the corner of the house, barking joyfully. Bruno, Lucas called, running to meet the dog, who immediately began licking the boy's face while his tail wagged furiously. That's Bruno, Miguel said unnecessarily, Lucas's best friend. Lorena smiled, watching the boy and dog tumble together on the grass. They seem perfect for each other. They are. Bruno was actually Isabel's dog, but he attached himself to Lucas. They've been inseparable ever since. Rosa appeared at the door, wiping her hands on her apron. Ah, you're back. And you brought the señorita. Come in, come in. I made lemonade. The inside of the house was just as charming as the outside. Comfortable furniture, family photos on the walls, a large stone fireplace in the living room. It was clearly a home, not just a house. They drank Rosa's homemade lemonade on the porch, then Lucas insisted on giving Lorena the grand tour. He proudly showed her his room with its cowboy-themed decor and toy tractor collection. And this is Daddy's office, Lucas said, pushing open a door to reveal a handsome study with a large desk covered in papers. He does boring farm stuff in here. Farm stuff keeps us fed, buddy, Miguel said lightly, ruffling his son's hair. Next came the tour of the actual farm, the stables with a dozen beautiful horses, the chicken coop where Lucas proudly collected eggs, the fields where Miguel explained they grew corn and soybeans. It's amazing, Lorena said sincerely as they walked back toward the house. You've built something really special here. Miguel looked around at his land, his expression a mixture of pride and something more complicated. It's been in my family for generations. My great-grandfather started with just 50 acres. And now, over 1,000, he said. We're one of the largest farms in the county. No wonder you were so worried when Lucas went missing, Lorena said. That's a lot of ground to search. Miguel's face grew serious. I've never been so scared in my life. Not even when... He trailed off. When Isabel died? Lorena asked gently. He nodded. That was different. With Isabel, there was nothing I could do. The policeman showed up at the door, and just like that, my life changed forever. But with Lucas missing, it was the not knowing that was unbearable. The feeling that I should be doing something, anything, to find him. I can't imagine how awful that must have been. When I saw him walking across that field holding your hand, Miguel's voice caught. I don't have words for what I felt. They had stopped walking, standing now at the edge of a field as the afternoon sun began its slow descent. Lucas was several yards ahead, chasing Bruno in circles. I know we just met, Miguel said, turning to face her directly. And I'm probably doing this all wrong. But would you have dinner with us tonight? Nothing fancy, just a home-cooked meal. Rosa makes incredible enchiladas. Lorena knew she was getting in too deep, too fast, but something about this place, about this little family that seemed both complete and somehow missing something at the same time, pulled at her. I'd like that, she said, but I should help. I'm not much of a cook, but I can follow instructions. Miguel's smile was worth any risk. Rosa will love that. She's always trying to teach me, but I'm hopeless in the kitchen. Back at the house, Rosa welcomed Lorena into her domain, putting her to work chopping vegetables, while Lucas sat at the kitchen table, coloring another picture. Miguel took a business call in his office, apologizing for the interruption. So, Rosa said as they worked side by side. You are new to town? Yes, just a week ago. And before, where was home? Lorena hesitated. I moved around a lot, never really stayed in one place very long. Rosa nodded, as if this confirmed something. Running from something or towards something? The question was so direct that Lorena almost cut her finger. I'm not sure. Rosa expertly flipped a tortilla. The heart knows what it needs, even when the head is confused. It's not that, Lorena said quickly. I just never found a reason to stay anywhere. Rosa gave her a knowing look. And now, before Lorena could respond, Lucas piped up from the table. Lorena, can you stay forever? You can have the blue room. Upstairs it has a really soft bed. Lucas, Rosa scolded gently. That is not how we invite guests. It's okay, Lorena assured her, then turned to Lucas. I have my own place in town, remember? Above the bookstore. But you could visit lots, Lucas suggested, like every day, and teach me how to make sweet potato fries. We'll see, Lorena said, feeling both touched and overwhelmed by the boy's easy acceptance of her. Dinner was everything Rosa promised. Delicious food, warm conversation, and Lucas's endless stream of questions for Lorena. What was her favorite? Color? Did she like horses? Could she swim? Had she ever been to Disneyland? As the evening wore on, Lorena found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. There was something about this house, these people, that felt safe. It was a foreign feeling, one she wasn't sure she trusted. After dinner, Lucas pleaded for a story before bedtime. Lorena can read it. She's good at voices. She did them when she found me in the forest. Oh, I don't know, Lorena demurred. It's getting late. I should probably get back to town. Please, Lucas begged. Just one story, Miguel intervened. Let's not pressure Lorena, buddy. But I can drive you back whenever. You're ready, he added to her. No, it's okay, Lorena found herself saying. One story. Lucas cheered and ran to get a book, returning with a well-worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are. Upstairs in Lucas's room, Lorena sat on the edge of his bed and read the story, doing different voices for each character as Lucas had requested. Miguel leaned against the doorframe, watching them with an expression that made Lorena's heart beat a little faster. When the story was finished, Lucas was already half asleep. Will you come back tomorrow? He murmured as she tucked the blanket around him. Not tomorrow, but soon, she promised, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Kay, he mumbled, his eyes drifting closed. Good night, Lorena. Good night, Lucas, she whispered, resisting the strange urge to kiss his forehead. In the hallway, Miguel was waiting. Thank you for that, he said softly. He hasn't settled down that easily for bedtime in months. He's a special little boy, Lorena said. You're doing a good job with him. I'm trying, Miguel sighed. Some days are harder than others. They walked downstairs in comfortable silence. Rosa had cleaned up the kitchen and retired to her own quarters in a small apartment attached to the back of the house. "I should get you home," Miguel said, grabbing his keys from a hook by the door. The drive back to town was quiet, but not awkwardly so. Lorena found herself watching Miguel's profile in the dim light of the dashboard, the strong line of his jaw, the curl of his hair at his collar. When they reached her apartment, Miguel walked her to the door. "Thank you for today," he said, "for everything. Lucas had a wonderful time." "So did I," Lorena admitted. "Your home is beautiful, and Lucas is... he's amazing." "He likes you," Miguel said, his voice lower now. "And so do I." The simple statement hung in the air between them. Lorena felt her pulse quicken again. "Miguel, I know," he said quickly. "It's too soon. I haven't done this in a long time. Dating. Not since Isabel." He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking boyish and uncertain. "I'm not sure I remember how." "I'm not sure I ever knew how," Lorena admitted. "I've never stayed in one place long enough." "And how long will you stay in Pine Grove?" The question was gentle but direct. Lorena had always had an answer ready. "Just passing through, just until I save enough money, just for now." But standing here with this man looking at her as if she mattered, she found herself without her usual response. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I didn't have plans beyond finding a job and a place to stay." Miguel nodded as if that was enough for now. "Well, if you're still here this weekend, Lucas and I are having a barbecue. Nothing fancy, just a few friends from town. We'd love it if you came." "I'd like that," Lorena said, meaning it. "Good," Miguel smiled. "Saturday, around 4? I'll be there." There was a moment, a brief hesitation where Lorena thought he might kiss her. Instead, Miguel reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "Good night, Lorena. Sweet dreams." "Good night, Miguel." As she watched his truck drive away, Lorena realized something that should have terrified her, but instead filled her with a strange warmth. For the first time in years, she didn't want to pack her bag and run. She wanted to stay, and that was the most frightening, exhilarating feeling of all. The days until Saturday passed in a blur of routine, yet everything felt different to Lorena. For the first time in years, she looked forward to each day instead of just getting through it. At the general store, Mrs. Miller noticed the change. "You're humming," she pointed out Wednesday afternoon as Lorena restocked the bread aisle. "I haven't heard you do that before." Lorena hadn't even realized she was doing it. "Just a song that got stuck in my head," she said, embarrassed. "Mm-hmm." Mrs. Miller nodded knowingly. "Wouldn't have anything to do with a certain handsome farmer and his adorable son, would it?" Before Lorena could respond, the bell above the door jingled. Both women looked up to see Miguel walking in, dressed in a work shirt and jeans, his hair slightly windblown. "Speak of the devil," Mrs. Miller whispered with a wink before calling out, "Good afternoon, Miguel. What brings you into town today?" Miguel smiled, his eyes finding Lorena's immediately. "Had to pick up some parts for the tractor at Henderson's. Thought I'd stop by and say hello." Mrs. Miller beamed. "How nice. Lorena, why don't you take your break now? I'll watch the register." Lorena wanted to protest. Her break wasn't for another hour, but Mrs. Miller was already shooing her toward the back room where employees could hang their coats and eat lunch. "Go on, honey. It's slow today anyway." Miguel followed Lorena to the small break room, which had just enough space for a tiny table and 2 chairs. "I'm sorry to surprise you at work," he said, looking suddenly unsure of himself. "I hope that's okay." "It's fine," Lorena assured him, trying to ignore the little flutter in her stomach. "Is everything all right? Lucas okay?" "He's great. He's at his friend Billy's house for a play date." Miguel hesitated. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something, and I figured it was better in person than over the phone." Lorena felt a momentary panic. Was he going to cancel the barbecue? Had he thought better of inviting her into their lives? "What is it?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "Lucas's birthday is next month, and I was thinking of getting him a puppy," Miguel said, surprising her. "He loves Bruno, but Bruno is getting older, and I thought, well, I wanted to get your opinion. Is it too soon after meeting you to ask for advice about something like this?" Relief flooded Lorena, followed by a warm feeling that he valued her opinion. "Not at all. I think a puppy would be wonderful for Lucas. He's clearly great with animals. Miguel's face relaxed into a smile. That's what I thought too. But Rosa says I'm crazy to add more chaos to the house. A 4-year-old and a puppy might be more than we can handle. Maybe, Lorena agreed, but children learn responsibility from caring for pets, and the joy it would bring him. She trailed off, remembering something. When I was 10, my sister Eleanor saved up and got me a kitten for my birthday. It was the best gift I ever received. What happened to the cat? Miguel asked. Lorena's smile faltered slightly. After Elena died, I couldn't keep him. My apartment building didn't allow pets. I had to give him to a friend. The memory still hurt, another loss in a long line of them. Miguel reached across the small table and took her hand. His palm was warm and slightly rough from farm work. I'm sorry, that must have been hard. It was, she admitted. But that doesn't mean Lucas shouldn't have a puppy. Just make sure it's one he can keep, no matter what. Miguel's thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand, sending tingling sensations up her arm. That's good advice. Thank you. They sat like that for a moment, hands linked across the table until the sound of the bell over the door broke. The spell. I should get back to work, Lorena said reluctantly, pulling her hand away. Of course, Miguel stood. I need to get those parts back to the farm anyway, but I'll see you Saturday. For the barbecue? I'll be there, Lorena promised. As she watched him leave, exchanging pleasantries with Mrs. Miller on his way out, Lorena tried to make sense of the emotions swirling inside her. Everything was happening so fast, yet somehow it felt right. For the first time in her life, running away was the last thing on her mind. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, warm sunshine, a gentle breeze and clear blue skies. Lorena spent the morning fretting over what to bring to the barbecue. A bottle of wine seemed too forward, and she didn't have Rosa's skill in the kitchen to make something impressive. In the end, she stopped by the bakery and bought a peach pie, which the baker assured her was Miguel's favorite. She was just about to leave her apartment when her phone rang, a rare occurrence since she had so few contacts in her new life. The number was unfamiliar. Hello? Lorena? It's Miguel. His voice sounded strained. I hate to do this, but I need to ask a huge favor. What's wrong? Alarm shot through her. Lucas fell off his bike this morning. He's okay, just a broken arm, but we've been at the emergency room for hours. They're putting a cast on him now. Oh no, poor Lucas. Is there anything I can do? Actually, yes, I hate to ask, but the guests will be arriving soon for the barbecue, and Rosa is here with us. There's no time to call everyone and cancel. Could you possibly go to the farm and let people know what happened? Just explain that Lucas had an accident and we'll reschedule? Of course, Lorena said without hesitation. Do you need anything else? Should I bring anything to the hospital? No, we're okay. They're saying we can go home soon. Miguel's voice softened. Thank you, Lorena. I don't know what I'd do without you right now. The words sent a warm glow through her chest. It's no problem. Tell Lucas I'm sorry about his arm and I'll see him soon. I will. The spare key is under the pot of red geraniums on the porch. Lorena grabbed her purse and the pie and headed for the door. It wasn't until she was halfway to Cedar High that she realized what had just happened. Miguel trusted her enough to send her to his home, to deal with his friends, as if she were already part of their lives. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. When she arrived at the farm, Bruno greeted her with enthusiastic barking. She found the key exactly where Miguel had said and let herself in, feeling strange about being in their home alone. She had just set the pie on the kitchen counter when she heard cars pulling up outside. Taking a deep breath, she went out to the front porch. A middle-aged couple was getting out of a station wagon, followed by 2 teenagers who were clearly their children. Behind them, more cars were coming up the driveway. Hello, the woman called, waving. You must be Lorena. I'm Patricia Henderson, and this is my husband, Tom. We've heard so much about you. Lorena pasted on a smile and walked down to meet them. Yes, I'm Lorena. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Lucas had an accident this morning. He's okay. She added quickly, seeing their concern. Just a broken arm. But Miguel asked me to let everyone know they're still at the hospital, and they'll have to reschedule the barbecue. "Oh, poor little guy," Patricia said. "His first broken bone. Is Miguel holding up okay? He can be such a worrier when it comes to Lucas." "He sounded stressed but managing," Lorena said, surprised at how easily she was conversing with these strangers, as if she had known them for years. Over the next 20 minutes, more people arrived. The town doctor and his wife, Miguel's foreman and his family, Lucas's friend Billy and his parents. Each time Lorena explained the situation, and each time they looked at her with curious, assessing eyes. She knew they were wondering exactly who she was and what role she played in Miguel and Lucas's life, questions she couldn't answer herself. The last to arrive was an elegant older woman in an expensive-looking car. She stepped out and surveyed. Lorena with undisguised interest. "You must be the young woman who found my grandson," she said, her voice cultured but warm. "I'm Eleanor Ramirez, Miguel's mother." Lorena felt suddenly nervous. "Yes, ma'am, I'm Lorena Santos. Miguel asked me to let everyone know that Lucas broke his arm this morning, so they had to postpone the barbecue." Eleanor's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Lucas broke his arm, and Miguel didn't call me?" "They've been at the hospital all day," Lorena explained. "I think he's been focused on Lucas." Eleanor nodded, then surprised Lorena by linking arms with her. "Well, since I'm here, why don't you and I go inside and have a chat? I've been dying to meet you." Before Lorena could think of a polite way to refuse, she found herself being guided into the house. Eleanor moved with the confidence of someone who had once lived there, heading straight for the kitchen and filling the kettle for tea as if it were her own home. "So," Eleanor said, turning to face Lorena once the kettle was on, "tell me how you found my grandson." Lorena gave her the short version of finding Lucas in the woods, conscious of Eleanor's shrewd eyes assessing her. "And now you and Miguel are friends?" The question was innocent enough, but Lorena heard the real inquiry beneath it. "Yes, friends," she said carefully. "I've only been in town a couple of weeks." Eleanor placed 2 teacups on the table. "And what brought you to Pine Grove? It's hardly a destination for young women." "I needed a change," Lorena said, sticking to her usual vague explanation. "A smaller town, simpler life." "Running from something?" Eleanor asked bluntly. The question startled Lorena. It was almost exactly what Rosa had asked her. "No," she said. "Not running from, just looking for something." Eleanor's expression softened slightly. "And have you found it?" Before Lorena could answer, they heard the sound of a truck pulling up outside. Moments later, the front door opened and Lucas's voice called out excitedly, "Lorena, look at my cast, it's red." Lucas ran into the kitchen, his left arm encased in a bright red cast, his face alight with excitement despite what must have been a painful day. He threw his good arm around Lorena's waist. "Daddy said you came to tell everyone about my accident. Did you see my cast? The doctor said I was the bravest boy ever." Lorena knelt down to his level. "It's an amazing cast, very brave indeed. Does it hurt?" "A little," Lucas admitted. "But Daddy said I can have ice cream for dinner, so it's kind of worth it." Lorena laughed, looking up to see Miguel standing in the doorway, looking exhausted, but smiling at the scene before him. Then his eyes moved past her. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I was invited to the barbecue, remember?" Eleanor said, walking over to kiss her son's cheek. "But it seems my invitation to my only grandson's emergency room visit got lost." "It was chaotic, Mom," Miguel sighed. "Lucas was screaming, and I just focused on getting him to the hospital." "Grandma!" Lucas finally noticed her, running to get another hug. "Look at my cast, isn't it cool?" "Very impressive," Eleanor agreed. "And how exactly did this happen?" "I was going down the big hill by the barn and hit a rock," Lucas said proudly. "I flew through the air like Superman, but then I landed wrong." "I told him not to ride down that hill," Miguel said, running a hand through his hair, "but he's got a stubborn streak." "Wonder where he gets that from," Eleanor murmured, but with an affectionate look at her son. The kettle whistled, and Lorena moved to take it off the stove, feeling suddenly like an intruder in this family moment. "I should go," she said. "I just wanted to make sure everyone got the message about the barbecue." "Stay," Miguel said quickly. "Please, we owe you dinner at least after all your help today." "Ice cream dinner," Lucas added excitedly. "Lorena can have ice cream too, right, Daddy?" Miguel laughed. I think we can manage real dinner and then ice cream. Mom, will you stay too? Eleanor looked between her son and Lorena, a speculative gleam in her eye. I'd love to, but I have a charity event this evening in the city. Another time, she knelt to hug Lucas again. You be careful with that arm, young man, and call me tomorrow. I want to hear all about your adventure. With a kiss for Miguel and a warm handshake for Lorena, Eleanor took her leave. As soon as she was gone, Miguel collapsed into a kitchen chair. I'm exhausted, he admitted. Hospital bureaucracy is its own special kind of torture. You should rest, Lorena suggested. I can take Lucas for ice cream in town and bring him back later. Miguel's face brightened, then fell. That's incredibly kind, but I couldn't ask you to do that. You're not asking, I'm offering. Please, Daddy, Lucas begged. I want to go with Lorena. Miguel looked between them, then smiled in defeat. Okay, but just for an hour or so. It's been a long day for everyone. Lucas cheered, then ran to get his shoes, leaving the adults alone in the kitchen. Thank you, Miguel said quietly. Not just for this, but for coming to the farm, dealing with all our friends and my mother. It was no trouble, Lorena assured him. Your mother is interesting. Miguel chuckled. That's a diplomatic way of putting it. Did she give you the 3rd degree? A little. She obviously cares about you and Lucas. She does. Sometimes too much. Miguel sighed. Since Isabel died, she's been extra protective and a little too interested. In my social life, or lack thereof, well, I survived the interrogation, Lorena smiled, and I think I even passed. Miguel's expression turned serious. You more than passed. I don't know how to thank you for today, Lorena. Most women I know wouldn't have dropped everything to come deal with my friends and family. Most people would help a friend in need, Lorena said, uncomfortable with his gratitude. Is that what we are? Friends? Miguel's eyes held hers, the question hanging in the air between them. Before she could answer, Lucas reappeared, shoes on the wrong feet but eager to go. The moment passed, but Lorena felt the weight of the unanswered question as she took Lucas's hand and headed for her car. At Daisy's diner, Lucas was the center of attention, proudly showing off his cast to anyone who would look. Daisy herself came over with extra cherries for his sundae for being so brave. As they ate their ice cream, Lucas chatted about his day, describing the hospital and the X-ray machine in vivid detail. Then, abruptly, he changed the subject. Lorena, do you have to go back to your apartment tonight? The question caught her off guard. Yes, of course, that's where I live. Lucas frowned thoughtfully, ice cream dripping down his chin. But you could stay with us, in the blue room. Then you could read me a story before bed like last time. That's very sweet, Lucas, but I need to go home tonight. But why? He persisted. Don't you like our house? I love your house, Lorena said carefully. But I have my own place. But Daddy likes you, Lucas said with the blunt honesty of a child. And I like you. And I think you like us too. So why can't you just stay, Lorena? Felt her heart squeeze. How could she explain to a 4-year-old the complexities of adult relationships, the fears and doubts that kept her always ready to leave? It's not that simple, Lucas, she said gently. Why not? He looked genuinely puzzled, and Lorena found herself without a good answer. Well, because grown-ups need time to get to know each other before they make big changes in their lives. But you already know us, Lucas reasoned. And we know you. You saved me in the forest, remember? I do remember, Lorena smiled. That was a special day, wasn't it? Lucas nodded vigorously. The specialest. And now we're friends forever. Yes, we are, Lorena agreed, touched by his certainty. And Daddy needs someone to help take care of him, Lucas continued, his small face serious. Rosa says he works too hard and doesn't smile enough. But he smiles when you're there. Lorena didn't know how to respond to that. The simple observation from a child's perspective hit her with unexpected force. You're a very thoughtful boy, Lucas, she finally said. Your daddy is lucky to have you. And you, Lucas added confidently. He's lucky to have you too. When they returned to the farm, Lucas was yawning despite his sugar rush. Miguel met them at the door, looking more rested after his brief respite. How was ice cream? He asked, lifting Lucas into his arms. So good, Lucas mumbled sleepily. Lorena let me have extra sprinkles. Miguel raised an eyebrow at Lorena, who shrugged innocently. He has a broken arm. Extra sprinkles seemed medically necessary. I can't argue with that logic, Miguel laughed. Let me put this little monkey to bed, and then maybe we could have a cup of coffee, unless you need to get back to town. Coffee. Sounds nice, Lorena said, surprising herself with how much she wanted to stay. While Miguel took Lucas upstairs, Lorena found herself wandering into the living room, looking at the family photos that adorned the walls. Many featured Lucas at various ages, and Miguel with his arm around a beautiful dark-haired woman who must have been Isabel. One photo in particular caught her eye. Miguel and Isabel on their wedding day, both radiantly happy. Isabel had been stunning, tall, graceful, with a smile that lit up her entire face. Lorena felt a pang of something she couldn't quite identify. Not jealousy exactly, but a sense of inadequacy. How could anyone ever fill the space left by someone so beautiful, so clearly beloved? That was the happiest day of my life, Miguel's voice came from behind her. Until Lucas was born. Lorena turned, embarrassed to be caught studying his past. She was beautiful. Yes, she was, Miguel agreed, moving to stand beside her, inside and out. You must miss her terribly, Lorena said softly. Miguel was quiet for a long moment. I do, he finally said. Every day, but not in the same way I did at first. He took a deep breath. In the beginning, the grief was like drowning. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't function. If it hadn't been for Lucas needing me, I don't know what I would have done. Lorena nodded, understanding all too well. After my sister died, I felt the same way, like I was underwater, everything muffled and distant. Exactly, Miguel said, looking at her with that recognition she'd noticed before. But eventually, you learn to swim in it. The grief doesn't go away, but it changes, becomes part of you rather than consuming you. Yes, Lorena whispered. No one had ever described it so perfectly before. Miguel turned to fully face her. Lorena, I've been wanting to ask you something for days now, but I've been too afraid. What is it? Her heart was suddenly pounding. Would it be okay if I kissed you? The question was so direct, so honest, that it took her breath away. Instead of answering with words, Lorena reached up and placed her hand against his cheek. Miguel leaned into her touch for a moment, then slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. Then Miguel's arms went around her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened. Lorena felt something inside her crack open, a door she had kept locked for so long that she had forgotten what lay behind it. Warmth flooded through her, a sense of rightness, of coming home. When they finally pulled apart, Miguel rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since the day you walked Lucas out of those woods, he admitted. I'm glad. You waited, Lorena smiled. It might have been awkward on first meeting. Miguel laughed, the sound warming her further. I have a confession, he said, taking her hand and leading her to the couch. I've never done this before. Kissed a woman? Lorena teased. Started over, he clarified, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. After Isabel, I didn't think I would ever want to, or that I could. And now I find myself thinking about the future again, about possibilities. His eyes searched hers. Is that crazy? We've only known each other a few weeks. If it's crazy, then I'm crazy too, Lorena admitted. I came to Pine Grove thinking it would be just another temporary stop. But now, Miguel prompted when she hesitated. Now I'm starting to think about staying. The smile that spread across Miguel's face was like the sun coming out after a storm. He leaned in to kiss her again, and Lorena felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Later, as Miguel drove her back to her apartment in town, they talked about simple things, Lucas's upcoming preschool year, the harvest season approaching at the farm, a movie they both wanted to see. Normal conversation, the kind people have when they're getting to know each other, planning a future that includes each other. At her door, Miguel kissed her goodnight, a lingering kiss full of promise. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. Lucas, and I usually go to the lake on Sundays when the weather's good. He could use some cheering up after his accident. I'd love that, Lorena said. As she got ready for bed that night, Lorena caught herself humming again. She looked around her small apartment, still sparsely furnished, still feeling temporary. But for the first time she could imagine filling it with things, making it a real home, a base for a life that included Sunday trips to the lake, ice, cream at Daisy's, and kisses that felt like promises. She thought about what Lucas had asked her. Why couldn't she just stay? The question had seemed so simple from a child's perspective, yet so complicated from hers. But maybe, just maybe, it was simpler than she'd been making it. Maybe staying wasn't about a place at all, but about people, about connection, about love. The word fluttered in her mind like a startled bird, too new and fragile to examine closely. But it was there, taking shape, gaining strength with each passing day. And for once, the thought of such deep feeling didn't make her want to run. It made her want to stay right where she was, to see what might bloom from this unexpected seed planted in the most unlikely soil, her long-closed heart. 2 weeks passed in a blur of happiness. Lorena spent most of her free time with Miguel and Lucas, picnics by the lake, movie nights with popcorn battles, and lazy Sunday afternoons on the farmhouse porch swing. Even Lucas's broken arm couldn't dampen his spirits, especially after Lorena bought him colored markers specifically, designed for decorating casts. At the general store, Mrs. Miller watched Lorena's transformation with grandmotherly approval. "You're blooming, honey," she said one morning as they arranged a display of local honey. "Love looks good on you." Lorena blushed, but didn't deny it. She wasn't sure if what she felt was love yet. It seemed too soon, too fragile to label. But it was definitely something she'd never experienced before. "I'm just happy," she said simply. "And Miguel, is he happy too?" Lorena thought about the way Miguel looked at her when he thought she wouldn't notice, the tenderness in his touch, the laughter that came more easily to him now. "I think so," she said. "I hope so." Just then, the bell above the door jingled, and Rosa entered, carrying a basket covered with a checkered cloth. "Good morning, ladies," she called cheerfully. "I brought fresh empanadas, still warm from the oven." "Rosa, you are a saint," Mrs. Miller declared, hurrying over to peek under the cloth. "Oh my, they smell divine." "A few for you," Rosa said, handing several wrapped empanadas to Mrs. Miller. "And the rest are for our hard-working Lorena. Miguel said you didn't have time for breakfast this morning." Lorena's heart warmed. She had mentioned in passing that she'd overslept and had to rush to work. The fact that Miguel had remembered and asked Rosa to bring her breakfast touched her deeply. "Thank you, Rosa, that's so thoughtful." Rosa waved away her thanks. "Psh, that man would send you the moon if he could." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "I haven't seen him this happy since before Isabel died. You are good medicine for him, for both my boys." Lorena didn't know how to respond to that. The comparison to Isabel always made her uneasy, as if she were being measured against a ghost she could never match. Rosa seemed to sense her discomfort. "Isabel was like a daughter to me," she said gently, "and I will always miss her. But life is for the living, no? She would have wanted Miguel and Lucas to be happy." "I hope so," Lorena said quietly. "I know so," Rosa said firmly. "Now eat your empanadas before they get cold. And don't forget, dinner at the farm tonight, 7 o'clock, I'm making my famous paella." "I'll be there," Lorena promised. After Rosa left, Mrs. Miller gave Lorena a knowing look. "Sounds like you're practically part of the family already." The observation sent a mixture of joy and panic through Lorena. It was happening so fast. This integration into Miguel and Lucas's life. Sometimes when she was at the farm, helping Lucas with his puzzles or working alongside Rosa in the kitchen or sitting on the porch with Miguel watching the sunset, it felt as if she had always been there, as if she belonged, and that terrified her. That evening, as Lorena drove to Cedar High for dinner, her phone rang. Expecting Miguel, she was surprised to see Martin Goldberg, attorney, on the display. She had applied for several jobs online before moving to Pine Grove, sending her resume to law firms that needed administrative assistance. "Hello, Miss Santos. This is Martin Goldberg from Goldberg Finch and Associates in Boston. I'm calling about the position you applied for. Oh, yes. Hello, Mr. Goldberg. I apologize for the delayed response. We had an unusually high number of applicants, but I'm pleased to tell you that we were very impressed with your qualifications and experience. Lorena's heart began to race. Boston. A real job in a prestigious law firm. The kind of opportunity she had been hoping for before. Pine Grove before Miguel and Lucas. We'd like to offer you the position, Goldberg continued. The starting salary is $55,000 with full benefits after 90 days. Would that be acceptable to you? It was more than acceptable. It was almost double what she made at the general store. That sounds very generous, she managed to say. Excellent. We'd need you to start in 2 weeks. Is that enough time for you to relocate to Boston? 2 weeks, 14 days to decide whether to leave everything she had found in Pine Grove for the career opportunity she had always wanted. Can I have a day to think about it? Lorena asked, her mouth suddenly dry. Of course, call me tomorrow with your decision. We're looking forward to having you on our team, Miss Santos. After hanging up, Lorena pulled over to the side of the road, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. 2 months ago, she would have accepted the offer without hesitation. It was exactly what she had been looking for. A good job in a big city, a fresh start, a chance to build a career. But now there was Miguel, with his gentle strength and quiet understanding. There was Lucas, who had claimed a piece of her heart from the moment she found him in the woods. There was Rosa, and Mrs. Miller, and even Daisy from the diner. People who knew her name, who cared about her day, who had woven her into the fabric of their small community. For the first time in her life, Lorena had roots beginning to grow. Tender, fragile roots that could still be ripped up easily enough. The practical part of her mind argued forcefully. The job in Boston was secure, professional, with opportunities for advancement. What did she have in Pine Grove? A minimum wage job at a general store and a relationship that was only a few weeks old. But her heart said something. Different entirely. By the time she arrived at the farm, she had composed herself enough to put on a smile. She wouldn't mention the job offer tonight. She needed time to think, to make the right decision. Lucas met her at the door, his red cast now decorated with drawings from all his friends. Lorena, you're late. I thought you weren't coming. She knelt down to hug him. And Miss Rosa's famous paella? Never. Miguel appeared behind Lucas, his face lighting up when he saw her. That look still took her breath away, the way he seemed truly happy to see her, every single time. Hey, you, he said, leaning down to kiss her lightly. Everything, okay? You look a little flushed. Just rushed to get here, Lorena said, avoiding his eyes. She had never been a good liar. Miguel gave her a curious look, but didn't press. Well, you're here now, and dinner's almost ready. Rosa's been cooking all afternoon. The evening passed pleasantly, with Rosa's delicious food and Lucas's endless stories about his day at preschool. But Lorena found it hard to stay present, her mind continually drifting to the decision that loomed before her. After dinner, while Rosa supervised Lucas's bath time, Miguel suggested a walk to see the sunset from the hill overlooking the farm. They strolled hand in hand, Miguel pointing out new fencing he'd installed and a tractor he'd recently purchased. You're quiet tonight, he observed as they reached the crest of the hill. Sure everything's okay? Lorena took a deep breath, taking in the view of Cedar High spread out below them, golden in the light of the setting sun. It was beautiful, peaceful in a way that Boston could never be. Just thinking, she said. About what? The future. It wasn't a lie, not exactly. Miguel turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. Funny you should mention that. I've been thinking about the future, too. The serious note in his voice caught her attention. You have? Lorena, he began, then stopped, seeming to gather his thoughts. These past few weeks have been... I don't even have words for what they've meant to me. To Lucas, you've brought something back to our lives that I thought was gone forever. Miguel, let me finish, he said gently. I know it hasn't been long. I know most people would say, it's too soon. But when you find something this right, this real, why wait? Why pretend it isn't exactly what you've been looking for? Lorena's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. What are you saying? Miguel squeezed her hands. I'm saying that I love you, Lorena Santos. I've fallen completely, irrevocably in love with you, and if you'll give me a chance, I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. Tears sprang to Lorena's eyes. Of all the moments, for him to say these words, to offer this commitment, just when she had to decide whether to stay or go. Miguel, But he wasn't finished. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Lorena's breath caught in her throat. This was my grandmother's, he said, opening the box to reveal a vintage ring with a single diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight. I know that would be rushing things even for us. He smiled. But I want you to have this as a promise. A promise that whenever you're ready, whether that's next month or next year, I'll be here waiting to make you my wife. Lorena stared at the ring, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. It was beautiful, perfect, everything a girl dreams of when she imagines this moment. I don't know what to say, she whispered truthfully. You don't have to say anything right now, Miguel assured her, wiping a tear from her cheek. Just know that I love you, and Lucas loves you, and we want you in our lives. Forever. The word forever hit Lorena like a physical blow. Forever. She had never allowed herself to think in terms of forever. Not since Elena died, not since she learned how quickly forever could be snatched away. Can I think about it? She asked, her voice small. A flicker of hurt crossed Miguel's face, but he quickly masked it. Of course, he said, closing the box and slipping it back into his pocket. Take all the time you need. They walked back to the house in silence, the perfect evening now tinged with awkwardness. At the door, Miguel kissed her goodnight, but it felt different, cautious, as if he was afraid of pushing too hard. Call me tomorrow, he asked. Lorena nodded, unable to trust her voice. The drive back to town was a blur of tears and confusion. By the time she reached her apartment, Lorena felt as if she were being torn in two. Boston or Pine Grove? Career or love? The safe path or the risk? She barely slept that night, tossing and turning, playing both scenarios over and over in her mind. By morning, she was exhausted but no closer to a decision. At the general store, Mrs. Miller took one look at her face and sent her to the back room with a cup of hot tea. Whatever it is, honey, it can't be as bad as your face makes it look, the older woman said kindly. Want to talk about it? Lorena found herself pouring out the whole story, the job offer, Miguel's declaration of love, the promise ring. And you don't know which to choose, Mrs. Miller summarized when she finished. I don't know what to do, Lorena admitted. The job in Boston is everything I've worked for, but Miguel and Lucas, they've become so important to me. Can I offer some advice? Mrs. Miller asked. From someone who's lived long enough to have a few regrets. Lorena nodded gratefully. Jobs come and go. Good ones, bad ones, they're all replaceable. But love, real love, the kind that makes you a better version of yourself, that's rare. Some people go their whole lives without finding it. But what if it doesn't last? Lorena whispered her deepest fear. What if I give up this opportunity, and then Miguel decides he doesn't want me after all? Or what if something happens to him like Isabel? Mrs. Miller's eyes softened with understanding. Oh, honey, there are no guarantees in life. Not with jobs, not with love, not with anything. The only thing we can do is choose what matters most to us right now and hope for the best. Lorena pondered this as she mechanically restocked shelves. Throughout the morning, around noon, her phone rang again. It was Martin Goldberg following up on his offer. Mrs. Santos, I hope you've had time to consider our offer. We really need an answer today as we have other candidates waiting. Lorena took a deep breath. Mr. Goldberg, I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm going to have to decline. I've decided to stay in Pine Grove. As soon as the words left her mouth, a wave of panic washed over her. What had she done? Had she just turned down a dream job for a man she'd known less than 2 months? That's disappointing to hear, Goldberg said. May I ask why? Lorena thought about Miguel's face when he told her he loved her, about Lucas's laughter when they played board games on the living room floor, about the way she felt sitting on the porch of Cedar High watching the sunset. as if she had finally come home. "I've found something here that I can't leave," she said simply. After hanging up, Lorena felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She had made her choice. Now she just needed to tell Miguel. She was just about to call him when the bell above the door jingled. Looking up, she was surprised to see Eleanor Ramirez entering the store, elegant as always in a tailored suit that seemed out of place in the small-town general store. "Ms. Santos," Eleanor greeted her, approaching the counter. "Do you have a moment to talk?" Lorena glanced at Mrs. Miller, who nodded and waved her off. "Take your break, honey. I'll watch the register." Eleanor led Lorena to a small cafe across the street, ordering coffee for both of them before getting straight to the point. "Miguel told me about last night," she said, "about his declaration and your hesitation." Lorena bristled slightly. "With all due respect, Mrs. Ramirez, that's between Miguel and me." "Please call me Eleanor," the older woman said, her tone softening. "And you're right, of course, it is between you two. But Miguel is my son, and Lucas is my grandson, and their happiness means everything to me." "I care about their happiness." "Too?" Lorena said defensively. "I believe you do," Eleanor surprised her by saying. "In fact, I've never seen Miguel as happy as he's been these past few weeks, not since Isabel died." Lorena didn't know how to respond to that. "But I have to ask," Eleanor continued, "what is holding you back? If you care for them as much as I think you do, why the hesitation?" The direct question, asked without judgment, broke through Lorena's defenses. "I'm afraid," she admitted quietly. "I'm afraid of committing, of letting myself love them completely and then losing them." Eleanor's expression softened further. "Because of your sister?" Lorena looked up, startled. "How did you know about Elena?" "Miguel told me. He's worried." "About you, you know. Worried that he pushed too hard, too fast." "It's not that," Lorena said. I've spent so long running, moving from place to place, never putting down roots. The idea of staying, of building a life with someone, it terrifies me. Because the more you love, the more you have to lose." Eleanor nodded understandingly. "I felt the same way after my husband died. I was so afraid of being hurt again that I nearly pushed Miguel away. My own son. What changed? I realized that the pain of not loving, of keeping myself apart, was worse than the risk of loving and losing." Eleanor reached across the table and took Lorena's hand. "My dear, life offers no guarantees, but I can tell you this. My son loves you. My grandson adores you. And they would move heaven and earth to make you happy if you'd only let them." Tears filled Lorena's eyes. "I got a job offer," she confessed. "In Boston. A good job, the kind I've been working toward for years." "Ah," Eleanor nodded. "And you're torn?" "I was," Lorena corrected. "I turned it down this morning. I chose to stay." Eleanor's face broke into a wide smile, so like Miguel's that it made Lorena's heart ache. "Then what's stopping you from accepting my son's promise?" "I'm still afraid," Lorena admitted. "What if it's a mistake?" "The only mistake," Eleanor said gently, "would be letting fear rob you of the chance to be happy. Trust me on this. I've lived long enough to know." By the time Lorena returned to the store, her mind was made up. She asked Mrs. Miller if she could leave early, explaining that she needed to see Miguel. "Go," the older woman urged. "Go get your happiness, honey." Lorena drove to Cedar High with her heart pounding in her chest, rehearsing what she would say. But when she arrived, the farm was unusually quiet. No sign of Miguel's truck, no Rosa in the garden, no Lucas playing in the yard. She knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Puzzled, she tried calling Miguel's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Just as she was about to leave, a farmhand walked by, carrying a bale of hay. "Excuse me," Lorena called. "Do you know where Miguel is?" "At the hospital in Greenvale," the man answered. "Lucas fell off the porch swing and hit his head. They took him in an ambulance about an hour ago." Lorena's blood ran cold. "Is he okay?" "Don't know, ma'am. Mr. Ramirez just said to keep things running here and that he'd call when he knew more." Lorena was back in her car before the man finished speaking, her hands shaking as she started the engine. The drive to Greenvale Hospital, 20 miles away, was the longest of her life. All she could think about was Lucas, bright, brave. Lucas with his crooked smile and endless questions. "Please be okay," she whispered over and over. "Please, please be okay." At the hospital, the emergency room receptionist initially refused to give her any information, since she wasn't family. But just as Lorena was about to argue, Rosa appeared in the waiting room. "Lorena! Thank God you're here," the older woman said, hurrying over to embrace her. "How did you know?" "One of the farmhands told me." "Rosa, how is he? How's Lucas?" "They're doing tests now," Rosa said, her usually composed face lined with worry. "He hit his head on the stone path when he fell. There was so much blood." "Miguel is with him. Can I see them?" Rosa nodded, leading her through the emergency room doors. "Miguel has been asking for you. He tried to call but couldn't reach you." "My phone must not have had service at the farm," Lorena said, guilt washing over her. "I should have been there." "Don't think like that," Rosa scolded gently. "Accidents happen. You're here now." They found Miguel in a small waiting area outside. The radiology department, his head in his hands. When he looked up and saw Lorena, the relief on his face was palpable. "Lorena," he said, standing to pull her into a fierce embrace. "You're here." "Of course I'm here," she said, holding him tightly. "How is he?" "They're doing a CT scan," Miguel said, his voice rough with worry. "They think he might have a concussion, maybe worse. He was unconscious when the ambulance came." "Oh, Miguel." Lorena's heart broke for him. "I'm so sorry." "He was asking for you," Miguel said, his eyes filling with tears. "Right before he passed out, he said he wanted to show you how high he could swing." Lorena's own tears spilled over then, running unchecked down her cheeks. "I should have been there." "Don't," Miguel said firmly. "This isn't your fault. Lucas has always been fearless, just like his mother." They sat together in the waiting room, hands clasped tightly while Rosa went to find coffee. The minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. Finally, a doctor approached them. "Mr. Ramirez," Miguel stood quickly. "Yes? How is my son?" "He's going to be fine," the doctor said, and Lorena felt her knees go weak with relief. "He has a mild concussion and needed a few stitches, but the CT scan showed no bleeding or swelling in the brain. We'd like to keep him overnight for observation, but he's awake now and asking for his daddy." Miguel looked like he might collapse with relief. "Can I see him?" "Of course." "Room 304. He's being settled in now." The doctor glanced at Lorena. "Family. Only for now, I'm afraid." "She is family," Miguel said firmly, taking Lorena's hand. "She's with me." The doctor nodded and led them to Lucas's room. The little boy looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, his head bandaged, his normally energetic body unnaturally still. But his eyes were open, and when he saw them, his face lit up. "Daddy, Lorena. Did you see my new OE? Now I have a cast and stitches." Lorena laughed through her tears as Miguel rushed to his son's bedside, gathering him gently in his arms. "You scared me half to death, buddy," Miguel said, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm okay, Daddy," Lucas assured him with the resilience of childhood. "The doctor said I'm super brave." "You are the bravest boy I know," Miguel agreed, smoothing Lucas's hair back from his bandage. Lorena approached the bed tentatively, still feeling like an intruder in this intensely private family moment. But Lucas reached for her hand. "Lorena, you came to the hospital again, just like when I broke my arm." "Of course I came," she said, squeezing his small fingers gently. "I was so worried about you." "Don't worry," Lucas said seriously. "Daddy says I have a hard head like him." Miguel laughed shakily. "That you do, son." A nurse came in to check. Lucas's vital signs suggesting that he needed rest. "One person can stay overnight," she told them, "but the rest of you should come back tomorrow." "I'll stay, of course," Miguel said. "Rosa and I will come back first thing in the morning," Lorena promised. After ensuring that Lucas was comfortable, they stepped out into the hallway to let him rest. Rosa excused herself to call Eleanor with an update, leaving Miguel and Lorena alone. "Thank you for coming," Miguel said, taking her hands in his. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," Lorena said firmly. "I love him too, you know." Miguel's eyes widened slightly at her words. "You do?" Lorena nodded, suddenly certain of what she needed to say. The fear of the job decision, the hesitation over Miguel's promise. It all seemed so trivial now compared to the terror of almost losing Lucas. "I love him," she repeated. "And I love you, Miguel Ramirez. I think I've loved you since the day you looked at me across that field and said I'd won your world." Miguel's face transformed with joy. "Really? Even though it's too soon? Even though we barely know each other?" "We know enough," Lorena said. "Today made me realize something. Life is too short and too uncertain to waste time being afraid. I've been running for so long, afraid to put down roots, afraid to love because I might lose again. But what happened to Lucas today could have been so much worse, and all I could think about was getting to you, being with you both, no matter what." Miguel pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "Does that mean—" Lorena smiled through fresh tears. "It means yes, Miguel. Yes to your promise, yes to forever, yes to building a life with you and Lucas at Cedar High." Miguel's answering smile was radiant. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the velvet box. "I've been carrying this around, hoping you'd change. Your mind." This time when he opened it, Lorena didn't hesitate. She held out her hand and Miguel slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. "You know," Miguel said, his eyes twinkling despite the exhaustion of the day, "Lucas is going to be insufferable when he finds out you're staying for good. He'll think his accident made it happen." Lorena laughed. "Then we won't tell him that." "I'd already decided this morning before I even knew he was hurt." "You had?" Miguel looked surprised. "I turned down a job offer in Boston," Lorena admitted. "A good one, but it would have meant leaving you and Lucas, and I realized I couldn't do that. I chose you. I chose us." "Boston?" Miguel's eyebrows rose. "You never mentioned a job in Boston. It just came up yesterday. The same day you gave me your heart on that hill." Lorena touched his cheek gently. "I'm sorry I hesitated. I was scared, and I needed to be sure." "And now you are." There was still a hint of vulnerability in his question. "Now I am," Lorena confirmed. "I want to be part of your world, Miguel, yours and Lucas's, for as long as you'll have me." "How does forever sound?" Miguel asked, pulling her into a kiss that felt like a promise, like a future, like coming home. 6 months later, on a perfect spring day, Lorena stood in the blue bedroom at Cedar High, no longer a guest room, but her room, their room. As Rosa helped her into a simple white dress. "You look beautiful, Mijija," Rosa said, tears in her eyes as she adjusted Lorena's veil. "Don't make me cry," Lorena warned. "My makeup will run." "Happy tears don't count," Eleanor said from the doorway, elegant as always in a lavender mother-of-the-groom dress. "And she's right. You're stunning." Lorena took a deep breath, looking at herself in the mirror. She hardly recognized the woman who looked back at her, not because of the dress or the carefully styled hair, but because of the joy that radiated from within. Gone was the guarded, wary woman who had arrived in Pine Grove less than a year ago. In her place stood a bride, a soon-to-be wife, a mother to a little boy who had claimed her heart in a forest clearing. A knock at the door was followed by Lucas's voice. "Can I come in? Daddy says it's almost time." Lucas bounded in, adorable in his mini tuxedo, his dark curls freshly cut for the occasion. The red cast and head bandage were long gone, leaving only a small scar near his hairline that would fade with time. "Wow," he said, eyes wide as he took in Lorena's appearance. "You look like a princess." "Thank you, sweetheart," Lorena smiled, bending down to straighten his bow tie. "And you look very handsome, just like your daddy." "Are you nervous?" Lucas asked, his head tilted to one side. "Daddy says he's not nervous, but his hands are all shaky." Lorena laughed. "I'm a little nervous, but mostly I'm just happy." "Me too," Lucas confided. "Now you'll be my real mom, not just my forest mom." Lorena's heart melted at the title he'd given her months ago. "That's right. But I've loved you like a real mum since the day I found you in those woods." "I know," Lucas said with the simple confidence of a child. "That's why you stayed even when you could have gone away. Because you love us." "That's exactly right," Lorena agreed, her eyes filling with tears despite her earlier resolve. "Lucas, it's time to go downstairs," Eleanor said, taking his hand. "Your father is waiting." As they left, Rosa handed Lorena her bouquet, a simple arrangement of wildflowers, similar to those that had grown near the spot where she'd found Lucas. "Ready?" the older woman asked. Lorena nodded, suddenly eager to be downstairs, to see Miguel, to start their life together officially, though in truth it had already begun the moment she'd carried a lost little boy out of the woods and into his father's grateful arms. The ceremony was small and perfect, just family and close friends gathered in the garden of Cedar High, with the rolling fields and distant mountains as a backdrop. Mrs. Miller dabbed at her eyes from the front row, and Daisy from the diner snapped photos on her phone. But Lorena hardly noticed any of them. All she could see was Miguel, waiting for her under an arch of flowers, his eyes filled with so much love that it took her breath away. As they exchanged their vows, Miguel's voice was steady and sure. "Lorena, on that day in the forest you found more than my son. You found me too, lost and alone, trying to be strong for Lucas but empty inside. You brought light back into our lives, laughter back into our home. You gave me hope when I thought it was gone forever. And today, I give you my heart, my life, my world, to cherish and protect just as you cherish and protect us." Lorena's voice trembled as she responded. "Miguel, I came to Pine Grove looking for a place to hide, a temporary stop on a journey without destination. But what I found was a home, not in a place, but in you and Lucas. You taught me that. Love isn't something to fear, but something to embrace even with all its risks. Today I promise to stay. Not just in Pine Grove, not just at Cedar High, but in your hearts, in your lives, in the world we build together. Forever." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas cheered loudest of all, rushing forward to join their first kiss as a married couple, turning it into a family hug that made all the guests laugh and applaud. The reception was held on the lawn, with tables under white tents and fairy lights strung between the trees. As the sun began to set, Miguel pulled Lorena away from the celebration for a moment of privacy. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. "More than I ever thought possible," she admitted, leaning into his embrace. "Though I still can't believe I married a man I've known less than a year. What will people think?" "They'll think we're crazy," Miguel grinned. "And maybe we are, but the good kind of crazy." "The best kind," Lorena agreed, kissing him softly. From across the lawn, Lucas called to them. "Daddy, Lorena, I mean Mommy, come see the cake. It has a forest on it." They looked at each other and laughed, hands linked as they rejoined the party, rejoined their son. Later that night, after Lucas was tucked in bed with promises that they'd only be gone a few days on their honeymoon, the guests had departed and the farm was quiet once more. Lorena stood on the porch of what was now truly her home. Looking out at the fields bathed in moonlight, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The loss, the loneliness, the aimless wandering. And then the miracle of a little boy lost in the woods, a father's grateful eyes, a promise made on a hilltop. Miguel joined her, wrapping a blanket around both their shoulders against the night chill. "Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Ramirez." Lorena smiled at her new name, leaning back against his chest. "I was just thinking about how sometimes the things we're most afraid of turn out to be the things we need the most." "Like falling in love again," Miguel guessed. "Like falling in love again," Lorena agreed. "Like letting yourself be vulnerable, putting down roots, creating a family that could break your heart, but could also heal it," Miguel added, turning her to face him. "That's the miracle, isn't it? That love can do both, break us and heal us." "It's worth the risk," Lorena said, knowing it was true with every fiber of her being. "Always," Miguel agreed, pulling her close. Above them, stars, scattered across the night sky like promises. Around them, the farm settled into peaceful slumber. And within them, love bloomed, no longer fragile and new, but strong and certain, ready to weather whatever storms might come their way. Lorena Santos had come to Pine Grove looking for nothing, more than a temporary job and a quiet place to exist. Instead, she had found Miguel Ramirez and his son Lucas, and they had given her their world. And in return, she had given them her heart, her presence, her promise to stay, forever.